Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Claire Bradley, and I'm the co-director of DNA Studies here at the International Institute of Genealogical Studies. Our website, as always, is genealogicalstudies.com, and this is our April virtual meeting for DNA Studies in 2025. Before we start on today's topic, as usual, I'd like to ask if anyone's got any questions or comments on their current coursework, any problems that you need to raise with me. I am here. Speak now or forever hold your peace, at least until the end of the class. All right. So today's topic is something that we do sort of almost automatically, but I want to discuss, do you have a method for doing it? Here's my method for doing it. And this is how we keep track of our DNA matches and our ongoing research. And many of us will be using more than one DNA site. And just as a reminder, these are the different DNA sites that are out there. We have Ancestry, we have 23andMe for now. We have MyHeritage, we've got Family Tree DNA, and much smaller, we've got Living DNA, and then we've got GEDmatch, which is not a testing site, but you can transfer and upload your results to it. So keeping track of all your matches across all of these different sites, if you're using them, can be quite a challenge. And there's plenty of duplication on these sites as well. So you may find that you see somebody on Ancestry and then you also have that same person on MyHeritage. And you might find that they don't have the precise same amount of centimorgans shared. You don't want to worry too much about that. It depends whether the person has uploaded their test from somewhere else or whether they've tested directly with the site. And these minor little variations aren't going to make too much of a difference. But if you do see someone who is duplicated across a couple of sites, make sure you look at them on both sites, or indeed more than both sites, because someone may well have more information on one site than another. We all have our favorite site to use. And many people will say, oh, Ancestry is my main site, that's where my main tree is, but they'll have a smaller tree on MyHeritage, they might link to a family search tree, and so on. So you want to make sure you look everywhere for that match, because they may well have something extra in one site that helps you that they don't have in the other site. As an example of this, I was recently working on a client case and there was a significant match of 180 centimorgans. And that person was on Ancestry. They had no tree, they hadn't responded to any messages, there was no information at all apart from what I could see with the shared matching. But I still wanted to know, I could sort of see what group this person was going to fit into, but I couldn't put her in precisely. But I found her on MyHeritage as well. And on MyHeritage, she had filled out just a stub of a tree, what I call a stub, which is just a couple of names, but there was enough in them for me to work out who she was. She still hasn't responded to the message, but it kind of doesn't matter now because I know who she is and I fitted her into the research tree. So I'm happy there. I'll come on to what a research tree, a match tree, which is the way I log everything, in a minute is. Now, 23andMe users, just want to say, they are the least likely to have transferred to another site and the least likely to have filled out the information they have about their family tree. So this is just an example of someone who matches me. And on the left-hand side here, you can see my quite detailed effort to give people information that might help them match. And I've also linked to my main tree on Ancestry. This person has taken the time to put in that 2 of their parents came from England and 2 came from Ireland. Believe it or not, this is actually much more information than you see on most people's profile on 23andMe. And in this case, it did at least narrow it down to her father's side for me to look at. If someone is on 23andMe and they've got nothing in here, we'll always make sure you look at the relatives in common there, because you might find, again, somebody who matches you somewhere else who has transferred where you get more information. So when you have that, what do you do with this information? How do you take stock of whoever it is? I mean, there's across the different sites, you could, no joke, easily have 30,000 DNA matches across the different sites. And there's no chance you'd ever keep track of all of them. And of course, we're always more focused on those fourth cousins or closer matches, because they're the ones with autosomal DNA where they're more likely to yield results that you can work with. So how do you keep track? So in my first instance, my first go-to is always the notes field on each site. So all of the different sites have a section where you can write in notes about the person, and those notes are private to you or to anyone that you've allowed to share, to collaborate with on Ancestry or manage. And then on MyHeritage, if you've shared your tree and your results with someone, they can see them as well. So you don't want to write this person is horrible or anything like that if anyone else is going to see it, but they're never going to see the information that you've written in. So I have been known to write words like useless tree, or blank tree, or everything is private, just to remind myself that I've looked at someone and that there's nothing there at the moment. Very important with using the notes fields to put dates on things. And of course, I'm showing you two examples here where I haven't put any dates. But what I do, if I send a message to someone, I always put in the notes field, message sent on such and such a date, because I want to make sure that I remember that I've done that. The messages can go off and link, you can link off to the messages from each person, of course, but just so that you know who that is, remember what you've done, I put that date in the notes field. So for this person here, I know who they are. I actually have them linked into my tree, and that person is my third cousin. And what I have under the privacy screen here is the name of his direct ancestor, who is a sister of my direct ancestor. So that's a sort of a quick aid memoir for me. I'll remember that name when I see it, and I'll go, oh yes, that part of the family. Um, and when you want to add in notes, you can do it very quickly from the main page of matches on Ancestry. You just do the little plus symbol here, and you can do add or edit notes, and it brings it up straight away for you to add that in. On MyHeritage, at the top of the match page, there is a add notes, and you have it open here. You can see what I have it in. You just have this little text bubble, and when it's filled in with the pinky purple color, that means you've added a note to the field. If the text bubble has no color, it means there's no notes in the field. Of course, we're always using the cluster dots on both Ancestry and MyHeritage when to help with that as well. So the notes plus the cluster dots are the first port of call for tracking your matches. Now, the other sites don't have the cluster dots, but they do all have a notes field that you can add to. So exactly the same there. And you can create your own version of the cluster dots, not with colors, of course, but you can, what I do with my notes fields on Family Tree DNA is I put in the names of the couple, the nearest common ancestor couple, if I know them, or if I don't know them, I put the area of my family tree that I think they're in, if I know that. And we always can work on that by looking at the shared matches of these people. So many people just use these notes, and that's absolutely fine, but just make sure, as I say, when they're across different sites, that you say that to yourself. So for example, neither of these people that I'm showing you here is on another site, but there are people that have both, and I also put in brackets, say if it's on MyHeritage, I put also tested on Ancestry brackets, and if their username or if there's any variation in their name, I put that there as well to remind myself, because I have seen people using slightly different names, and that can be confusing. Sometimes, particularly with women, they might test on one site and they might use their married name, and they might transfer to another site and they might use their birth surname. And it's always advisable to use your birth surname if you are a married woman or anyone who's changed their name, because that's the most valuable for your DNA. Your married name, even if you're married for 70 years, has no bearing on your genetic makeup, unless of course you're related to your husband. That's a different story. So people use the notes field. That's your primary port of call. Many people also store information about their matches offline, and this is something I do. There used to be a couple of different products that you could use to download your matches from different sites and store them all together. There used to be one, it was called Genome Mate Pro, and then they changed the name of it, and I don't think it exists anymore. As in, people who have it can still use it, but I don't think you can buy it anymore. I had a look for it when I was preparing this class. But I found that the time investment for using one of those programs was immense, because you had to download everything, then you had to put in a lot of data to get the details to work out for you. And then, of course, you had to regularly update it because we get new DNA matches all the time. So I just decided that was too much work for me. I wasn't going to get into it. But um, what I do is I use my offline family tree software, or a spreadsheet, and that works very well for me. So I have developed my own method of building match trees, and some people call them quick and dirty trees, or research trees, or floating trees. There's lots of names for them. And many people like to use Lucidchart for this. Now, I don't use Lucidchart, but you'll have seen it. If you've ever seen any of Diane Southard's work on your DNA guide, she uses Lucidcharts. And I have to admit, they look lovely. They're lovely little square boxes with names in them, and you can make them all different colors and so on. I don't use that because, again, I just thought the time investment to learn how to use that when I had other things I already know how to use was worked better for me. Um, so other people build private unsearchable trees on Ancestry, and of course I do this too. And if you don't know how to build a private unsearchable tree, we can discuss that in another session. But you always want to make sure that any research tree, especially where you're linking in matches to people who are alive, that you want to make that unsearchable so that no one can find it and see your workings. That's very important. So here's an example of a match tree that actually my friend Phil Isherwood sent to me. He built this in PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint, and I asked him to send it because I've seen some of his lectures before and I thought that this looked really nice. So it's a lot like Lucidchart, but you can see what he's done is he's just built boxes and he's colored the boxes blue and pink for different common ancestors, and then descendants down. So he's not adding in the spouse in this case. And that's often the case when you're building a match tree. You might not put in everybody in the family. You're just going to do it very quick to link in the people who are key in the chain. And so here, all these green people, which he's anonymized, are people who are alive. And he has put in the centimorgan share with his mother. This is his mother's DNA he's working on, and he's put in the relationship to those people as well. And so here's the tester person, that's presumably his mother, and then all of these people who connect to her in different ways. And you can see some of them very small amounts, some of them are larger amounts. Now, I think this looks very neat and tidy, and if you like PowerPoint and you're already good at it, well then this would work very well for you. And I like these visual methods because they're quick to spot. Whereas I find when you're using, say, the Ancestry floating tree method, I sometimes forget what I have in the floating tree. And I need to go back to it and find what I'm looking for. And that doesn't work for me so well. Okay, here's another example, and I've deliberately left this a bit small because these are working trees, and I don't want to accidentally display anything that I shouldn't. So this is a paternal cluster of mine, and I call it my mystery cluster because I actually don't know how these people relate to me. But what I have been able to establish is that there is a couple whose names were Peter Connolly and his wife Bridget. I don't know what her birth surname was. And Peter and Bridget have at least 3 children that I'm aware of through records. And 2 of those children, Catherine and John, I have an enormous number of DNA matches to them. And those people also match all of the testers on my dad's side of the family. So my brother, my aunt, my uncle, and my dad's first cousin on their mother's side. So we've got 5 people in the mix. And what I do is I've built out this massive descendancy tree for these people. And I've worked out how they're all related to each other. I have not worked out how we are related to them. But in my tree workings, and this is built in my software GenoPro, which is an old software, it's no longer updated, but I've always liked it because it's so visual. I use a color coding system, so people who are colored in yellow are matches I have found on Ancestry. Grey ones are matches I found on MyHeritage, and they're the places that you find most of your matches. And then I have a green color for 23andMe and so on. And what I do is I link all of these people in, and in the notes field in the tree, I add in the DNA shares with the different members of my family who've tested, including if somebody has no match, because no match is still important, especially when you get out to, say, the 3rd cousin and beyond level. I've been able to find, different levels. Say with my brother and myself, we're both tested, we are full siblings. We knew that already, and the DNA confirmed it. And I find that there are people who match me at a certain level, and they're a completely insignificant match for my brother. There's one person, we know who he is. He's my mother's third cousin, and I share quite a high amount with him, about 89 centimorgans. That's quite high for a third cousin once removed. My brother only shares 7 centimorgans with him, which is so small that it could be a false positive. But it isn't. We actually know who this person is, and we've been able to document the connection. But this is the value of looking at the two siblings together. So I put in the notes field for each of these, I put in those matches to my aunt, my uncle, the cousin, etc., so that I know exactly how all those people link in. And if there's anybody else that's relevant, I add those into that notes field there as well. Has this solved my mystery cluster for me yet? No, it hasn't. This is a work in progress, but this is the way I like to look at it. And this is only one segment. There's about 40 people in this cluster that I've identified connected to this Bridget and Peter Connolly, and I don't know yet how they're related to us. Now, if you use DNA Painter or Banyan DNA, you can also easily build this kind of a match tree in there. And I've just got a couple of examples of it here for you. The one on the left is from a Watto tree in DNA Painter, but you can just use it to build a match tree and add in the centimorgan shares very nicely. So this is one I built for a client where we were working on who a potential biological grandfather was for someone. And in this case, the great grandfather had been married twice. So there was a question of which wife was relevant for this project. And unfortunately, the man had been married to his first wife, was related to him. So that actually didn't help us a huge amount. But you can see here that I built out the tree, and here I had put in the hypotheses of how people might connect in. This is a similar example from a different case in Banyan DNA. Banyan DNA has a nice anonymizing feature. So I built this tree, and then I just pressed a little mask symbol in it. Press that and it blanked out everybody. And everywhere there's a little purple cube with the double helix, that's where there's DNA matches in place. And when you press on that, you can see the information. And obviously I can unanonymize this when I'm working on it. So I often will build these sorts of trees in parallel to my tree that would look like this. And that might sound time consuming, but both Banyan and DNA Painter do have a feature where you can upload a GEDCOM. It's a little bit messy when you do it in Banyan. That is still in beta testing, but in Watto it works very nicely. You just upload your GEDCOM. It says who are the common ancestors that you want to import, and then it works from there. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, my notes have closed themselves. Now, there we go. So the main thing that I want you to take away from this session is to be consistent. Don't try all of these things and not commit to them. Have it, by all means, try them all and then decide which one you like and then commit to that. And it may well be that you just go, do you know what? I'm going to use a spreadsheet. I'm going to have a tab in the spreadsheet for each of my ancestral couples, say at the 2 times great grandparent level, so 16 tabs with their names on it. And then I'm going to put in the name of the match, the testing site, the shared amount of centimorgan, and if there's a notes field, I'm going to put it in there. You can do that, and you could do a hyperlink to that match on the site. And that works very well for lots of people. But the main thing is that you're consistent and that you keep it updated, because these things are changing all the time. I also want to point out that if you're, say, working on a case where there's some sensitive information, perhaps you're helping someone or you are someone who doesn't know one of your parents or your grandparents, if you do get a match that's over, let's say 300 centimorgans, take a screenshot of that information for your private usage offline, because sometimes when people see a new unknown match of a very high level, they get panicked. They think, oh, what's that? And they might hide themselves, or they might delete their hit. I had that happen to a client. She did a test for fun, logged on, discovered that her father was not her biological father by finding an unknown half sister at the top of the list, and was so shocked by it all that she decided actually to remove her data from the site. And then later on she had to retest because she then was ready to find the information. So take a screenshot of anything that's important, just in case something happens. Now, before I finish up today's session, I just want to come on to a couple of things, which I have called parish notes. This month, 25th of April, is DNA Day, which is sort of a worldwide celebration of things we know about DNA. And you will always find that there are offers available. So if you were thinking of buying someone a kit, or you were thinking about upgrading, say particularly on the Y DNA, which is always super expensive, there are offers at both Family Tree DNA and MyHeritage discounts on upgrading or buying additional tests this month. I'm sure there'll be more from the other sites as we get closer to the 25th of April. So keep an eye out on the social media channels of the various DNA companies if you're interested in that. Secondly, I wanted to mention, and you will, if you're a user of Family Tree DNA, you will have seen that you got an email from them, and they've instituted a site-wide mandatory password reset. Um, but there are some new rules about the password. So this is a good thing. It might be a little tedious to have to update all your passwords, but this is an important security measure. So they're insisting that the new passwords are 12 characters long as a minimum, and they have all those rules of, one uppercase, one lowercase, one number, and one special character. I have to admit that I haven't got around to changing mine yet because I manage about 17 different kits on Family Tree DNA. So it's a significant time investment to change them all, and so on. And secondly, or thirdly, and lastly, it would be remiss not to mention what's going on with 23andMe in the news. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which means that they're looking to sell the business as a going concern. Now, there's been a huge amount of media coverage about this and what it means. And of course, it means something in America that possibly people who are outside of America don't understand because we have all different bankruptcy laws in different countries. But some of the media coverage is quite scaremongering, I feel. The advice from prominent genetic genealogists like Blaine Bettinger, Leah Larkin, and Diane Southard is to hold fire on deleting your kit for now. Now, of course, you might decide, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to delete mine, and that's absolutely fine. I have put a blog post up on my blog, cbgenealogy.ie, about how to do that if you want to do that. And I will put it in the chat when we stop the screen share. I've decided personally I'm going to wait a couple of weeks. I'm going to see who's going to buy them, and then I'm going to make a decision. But what I have done in the meantime is I have downloaded my raw DNA file, and I've made copies, screenshots, as I was just discussing, of any significant matches that I have there, just in case something happens in the meantime. So it's about being prepared for it. If you have another opinion, by all means, do what you wish, read up on it and see what you decide to do. I'm not here to make one suggestion or other, but what I'm doing is I'm going to wait and see for a few weeks, and I may well yet delete the kits. If you delete your account, it will delete all of the kits that are in the account. There's not a way to just delete one and keep another if you have a couple in there. Okay, so we do have a couple of minutes for questions. But before I stop the screen share, I want to thank you for coming to today's class, which was presented by the International Institute of Genealogical Studies, and you can find us at genealogicalstudies.com. Thank you. Okay, so I've stopped the share there, and I'd like to open up the floor to discussions now. How do other people track their matches? What do you do? Do you do something different to me? I'm interested to hear if there are other ways that you look at these things. Um, Anyone got any thoughts on it?
I've created a tree in Legacy with
Oh, in
DNA
Legacy. Oh, very
matches.
good. Yeah. And do you use the notes field in there, or is there, some people use the suffix field? So if you had like a space where you would put junior or senior or something like that, some people put the centimorgan share with an individual in that suffix field, which I quite like.
Yeah, that's what I do is I put suffix, the centimorgans
Yeah.
in there or in the name.
Yeah. And do you put a code for where the tester is? So like an A for ancestry or an MH for MyHeritage or something like that.
Yeah, I only have Ancestry, so
Okay.
so that or GEDmatch.
Yeah. Does anyone else do anything different? Is anyone not keeping track of their matches? Have you just taken the test and gone, oh, I'll just see?
I've
I,
been, go ahead.
You go,
no,
Kathy.
you go
Yeah.
first. Oh, okay.
Uh,
So, I use spreadsheets and, the notes field sometimes.
Okay.
So, and then also the dots, so
Yeah.
I've got to get
The
back
dots are
to
great.
organizing it better. So
Yeah. And Jeff,
I
what
like
do
the idea of having, the different matches in different Excel spreadsheets. So I'll have to look
Yes.
at that.
Yeah. And then of course you can link to them with if you're good at Excel, you can do hyperlinks in between the either the tabs or the different spreadsheets.
I've been using notes and sort of a fragment tree in Ancestry to follow a line in a similar situation. My mother's DNA kit matched a couple and their descendants, many of their descendants, and unfortunately they had about a dozen children. And I'm trying to track which branches match more closely.
Yes.
Um, my mother's kid is in Ancestry. Um, she has a full brother who I've gotten a DNA sample in through another testing company through Family Tree DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have not been tracking it through Family Tree or My Heritage, where I also have some of my family members' DNA kit
Mm-hmm.
entered. But I think I'm at the point where I would really like to see if my uncle's DNA adds another dimension than what I'm
Yeah.
not seeing in my mother's kit.
Absolutely. And it's great that you've tested him at Family Tree DNA because that means that if you want to, you can also explore the Y DNA of your maternal grandfather as
Right.
well.
Yeah, that was how we initially got him tested, and then later on I added the autosomal.
You added the autosomal. Okay. Yeah.
Correct.
Well, just remember then that Family Tree DNA is a smaller database, so you might not get the same level of matches that you get in Ancestry, but it is absolutely worth it. And what I do find, because Family Tree DNA has been around a long time, is that there are people there who are dead now, and so are not available to test in other testing sites. So you might find that there are older people in that database, and sometimes that might mean that no one is responding to the messages anymore, but
Mm.
at least you can still see who the shared matches are and work on the information.
I did have a question for you about I've got my mother passed away about 2 years ago, and I inherited some of her things, and among them were three envelopes that had come from my great grandmother. Um, and I've been looking at companies to potentially have artifact DNA testing
Right.
done.
Yes.
She would be along the branch where I suspect this connection to these family members that I can't
Place.
connect. I just wondered if you had any recommendations about which company uh, are better.
I don't have a preference for one. I haven't done it myself yet. But what I would recommend is holding off a while because the technology is still developing. It's extremely expensive and they have to destroy the sample when they do it. So to have the best chance of a return on it, I would wait a while until we're seeing more stories of people who are doing this and the success rates that they've had. Um, what I will do is I will put together a list of the companies. There's only about 3 companies that are doing it. And one of them has recently changed their name, which is why I'm not saying their name. I don't want to get it wrong. But I spoke to them at Roots Tech. But I would hold off for now. Just keep those very safe. Keep them in a dry space, and hold off. Also, consider that, are you sure that the person who licked the envelope is the person you're
Mhm.
interested in?
Right,
There's always the
right,
chance that
yeah.
it could have been someone else.
And the three letters were in possession of different people at different times, and I know that at least one of them was kept in a garage, probably not the optimal
No.
conditions for testing, so that would be my last choice.
Is the
for testing.
handwriting the same?
Yes.
Okay, so it does at least look like it's the same person in each case. So, I mean, there's a good chance that they will have licked the envelope themselves, but you know, there's always the chance they haven't. So my best advice is to hold off for now if you can, because like all of these things, they will come down in cost and they will get better. You know, in a couple of years' time. I always like to remind people of my friend who took the Y-DNA 12 marker test about 15 years ago. It cost $800.
Oh,
And I told him he was a white man from Europe.
mm,
He already knew. You know, but nowadays we can spend much less than $100 and get a lot more information. So I think this is a case where if you can be a little bit patient, it'll be worth it.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, if no one has any more questions, we will leave it there for today. If you take the Irish Studies class, I'll be teaching one on Saturday afternoon as well. And if not, I will see you. It'll be Hethel next month taking the DNA class, but I will see you in June. Okay, thanks for watching today. Bye bye.